Hey guys, what is up? Public here, back on another video, and we have a quick update to talents. I want to bring you guys about a choice that you get to make inside of Mythic Plus for your talent build. So let's dive in. Okay, so this video is mostly about Mythic Plus and giving you a couple more options and kind of additions to the build that I mentioned in my previous video and what was on the Icy Veins guide originally. So for a default in Mythic Plus, this is more or less standard. Obviously, there's some points I've moved around in the class tree, not a big deal. But what I'm really focusing on is our spec tree, and in particular this middle section of flex points. So if you're not aware of flex points, what I've been kind of calling these guys in the middle is just like our talent soup here, where there's not a whole lot of choice here and things are so close together. There's not, you can kind of pick whatever you prefer to run. And in particular, this season, we have three really important flex points. We have Maddening Touch, Mind Devourer, and Phantasmal Pathogen. So real quick, I'll kind of explain what they all do. So Maddening Touch says Vampiric Touch deals 15% additional damage. If you take both points, it turns into 30% additional damage and gives their ticks a chance to generate insanity every time that it deals damage. So definitely like a mass AoE talent here for sure. The one thing that's not clear with this tooltip, which is probably misleading a lot of people, the amount of insanity that you generate, that chance to actually proc, actually lowers as you add targets. So this is something we found out when the talent was first added. Unfortunately, the tooltip isn't really helpful here, but as you're actually scaling targets, the proc rate is going down to kind of compensate for that gain in multi-target. It is technically still going up, like relative to like how much insanity you're getting because of how many extra ticks that you're getting. But because of that, it's not just scaling out of control. Like if you're pulling 20 mobs, you're not getting that much more procs. You're going to get more, but it's not going to be a linear amount of scaling. Now, what is really nice, though, is the Vampiric Touch ticking damage, particularly with Screams of the Void. This just kind of plays really nicely together. Now, if we move on to Mind Devour, this just says that your Mind Blast has a 10% chance to make your next Devouring Plague cost no insanity and deal 20% additional damage. So it's giving us another modifier onto Devouring Plague, which stacks with all the other modifiers that we have from our tier set. We're also getting more Mind Blast casts in general because of the tier set. If you didn't remember, our actual 2-piece set bonus is increasing the chance for Shadowy Insight to happen by 25%. So you are just on average casting more Mind Blasts. In a dungeon, you can expect to see between like 20 and 30, 35 procs or so, depending on how long the dungeon is of this, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you factor in the fact, each one of these is effectively 45 free insanity, and it's dealing more, and it's also contributing to a higher uptime of our tier set, which again is Cast of Devouring Plague. This can really be a great overall talent with Mind Devourer. And the last one to talk about is Phantasmal Pathogen, which just says your shadowy apparitions deal 150% increased damage to targets affected by your Devouring Plague. So inside of AoE, because this build is primarily playing Mind's Eye, and we're not spreading Devouring Plague, you're just funneling it onto one target. This in particular is not a great node for overall damage, but it's going to do a lot of priority target damage into the big target that you're trying to focus down. So in general, if you're taking Mind's Eye, the synergy here with just I want more priority target damage, this is the better point of the three. And then also, if you decide to take Destroyed Reality with this build, you're getting even more value out of Phantasmal Pathogen, because as you spread Devouring Plague, you're getting that bonus on multiple targets, which is really great. So in this season, I think Phantasmal Pathogen is kind of a lock-in choice no matter what. But, of course, if you're trying to change things up, you can definitely do that. Now, looking at actual sim numbers, this configuration is going to give you the most single target damage. If we even move Mind Devourer around to Maddening Touch, that's a 3% damage loss in single target, but you're actually end up getting like 1 to 2% AoE damage for that choice. So for people, I think you kind of have this choice where maybe it's a tyrannical situation, you want to maximize single target, I would default to this build. Maybe you're doing Fortified Keys and you want to get a bit more AoE damage, maybe you go with Maddening Touch instead. And especially as you get into a higher key scenario, especially if you're pulling trash onto bosses, you're going to get even more value out of Maddening Touch than you would so otherwise, effectively lowering how much pure single target you're actually doing in that fight. So again, kind of depends on what you're looking for, but if you see people, especially that are pushing high keys, making this swap from Mind Devourer to Maddening Touch, this is probably wise because they're looking to get that. It's about a 1% damage gain at 10 targets and almost 2% damage gain at 20 targets to make this swap. So that's usually what they're looking for in that area. And again, if most of the key is AoE, that can make up for what you would see. But in your average key for most players, especially if you're sitting that like plus 10, even up to like plus 15 range, the average that you're going to see, I think you're going to get way better value out of Mind Devourer on average. It's still pretty close. I mean, overall, even with all these builds, they're like within 1%, give or take. I just usually think that extra single target is really nice here. And just funneling more Devouring Plagues into that main target is a really nice thing to do. So that's it for this video. I just want to kind of give a brief explanation of what you might be seeing folks doing. By the time this video comes out, Icy Veins will also show and break down this choice a little bit more if you're curious about some of the numbers that I talked about in this video. But hopefully this is helpful and kind of explains the choice that you have for this build inside of Mythic Plus. Thanks for watching.